Saunders, I appreciate you joining me this morning. We're going to talk about leadership, which was the keynote speaker this morning, and who makes a better PM, generative AI, and that's the word I always put in front of it, or the human intelligence, which is us carbon-based people. Before I get too far into this, I need to point out that I'm a DoD civilian, and as such, the opinions that I'm talking about today are of my own. They do not represent the DoD or its components. So they are mine and mine alone. So most of you guys have seen movies, The Matrix, Odyssey 2000, RoboCop, Terminator, those kind of things, depending on the kind of genre you like. But somehow, somewhere, artificial intelligence takes over and the humans have to unite and fight back, and it's a complete dystopia. It's horrible. Horrible, horrible, horrible. We don't want that to happen. We're going to look at this from a little different perspective of how it's coming into our arena and all knowledge workers' arenas, because what we do as a PM is we lead. That's why you're in that room leading that team. Now, you may have a different scale of leadership in there, different roles as the project goes on, but we lead. That's what we do. A little background on myself. Went to the Air Force Academy, 30 years in the Air Force, 20 of that was in the reserves. And it culminated at the Pentagon. I was the comptroller for the Air Force, operating and overseeing a $6 billion a year budget of our tax money. And then after that, I went over and switched over to the CIO's office, became the director of cyber programs and policy, overseeing all the you don't want to know how much we spend on IT in the Air Force. We spend quite a bit of our tax money on it, but usually it gets us the right value. Currently, I serve in the Army Air Force Exchange Service. Anybody here with military background? Okay, so you guys know about the PX, VX, the stores. That's what we do. We're probably the only $8 billion company you've ever heard of because we're a government private entity and we can't advertise outside of our users. But what we do is if you've got a military member, husband, wife, spouse, etc., child, who goes to service, and they're based overseas or in the U.S. in some remote area like North Dakota, which happens, they can still get U.S. goods and services at a fair value because when you're overseas, they know you're a base and they got you captive, so they'll charge you up prices. So we were established in the late 1800s to do that, and then any profits we make from that, we do, but they all get reinvested back into the company for capital projects, IT projects. They get, and also the majority of that goes back to the services for the morale, welfare, and recreation. So that's to improve people's lives. So they can go camping, so they can go to the bowling alley, childcare, those kind of things. And it's a different motive than just getting up to go do your job. It's, hey, I'm also improving people's lives, defending the Constitution for that matter, and going on. So we may have to defend ourselves against a global PM someday. So let's take a look at that. We're going to get into. The advance button isn't working. We'll use it over here. Oh, this has an on button. The laser's working. Okay, I can go from here anyway. So we're going to hit 3 topics and summarize. First of all, we're going to take a look at generative AI and humans, strengths and weaknesses. We're going to look at tools that our industry gives us, PMI in specific, to harness it. And then we'll look at a 3-pronged approach for generative AI. I'm not going to walk you out with 15, 20. It's 3-pronged. You go do them, you'll do pretty well. Then we'll have some Q&A and summarize.
Hey, Greg. You might want to try turning it off and on. That worked the last time.
All right, thank you. All right, I did not lose my train of thought as I did this. I wanted to see everybody's face. One guy was so shocked he told me how to make my laser. This is our environment. This is it. All right, Gartner says and is predicting 80% of our tasks or your team members' tasks are going to be done by generative AI. It's a bit of a problem. Secondly, IBM says 77% of new entrants in the workplace are going to have their work affected by it. you'd better be in front of this, or at least know what's going on with it, to be ready, because it can do a lot of our tasks. Thank you very much. All right, let's look at leaders. This is about 2,500 years of leaders. You're going to see everybody from different titles, of a pharaoh to a king to a queen to the greats to dictators to presidents to missionaries to generals. Everybody's represented up there. What I will tell you, there is not one common trait among these 20 or so that you see named or otherwise. The other thing I'll ask you is, any of those pictures make you want to go follow someone? Any of those pictures make you want to go fight someone? Okay? But what they have in common is they can influence people and get them to do what they want. And that's what we're going to look at today. So let's go through the attributes. Not all male, not all female. Not all firstborn, not all lastborn, not all middle children up there. Not all from a certain continent. Not all from a certain area. We're going back to 1300 BC here, all the way up to Colin Powell, 21st century. So we got all that. They're not all the, I'm sorry, the last one was, there's just no common trait among them other than they can get people to follow them, all right? And we're going to dig into what some definitions for that are and why that happened and how they could do that, because that's what you and I do, hopefully with a good ethical background and moral standing as you take your positions. So we're going to do a little action on the right-hand side, but one of the things leaders do, and it's the soft side that we do, is we reestablish other people. So I mentioned I went to the Air Force Academy and was in the Air Force for 30 years. This is an Air Force glider, a little mock-up right in front of you from the Air Force Academy. And when you, an instructor pilot, well, not an instructor pilot, when you're a cadet, everybody gets a chance to solo out. It's a lot of fun. And a certain set of us can upgrade and become instructor pilots, and it's a 6 to 9 month training program, very rigorous, a lot of flight maneuvers, a whole bunch of different things, and you have to memorize. Anybody here a pilot? Okay. So there's things, checklists. If you ever look in the cockpit when you get off a plane, you see all these papers or at least these screens. These are checklists, and you're very thankful your pilots have checklists. Because things go wrong in flight that you never know about and you never should know about. But there are special checklists which are called boldface. In boldface, I have to have memorized by heart. They're training you not to hurt yourself or kill yourself or somebody in the plane, or with the Air Force would also say, don't damage government property, because there's tax dollars involved there. So one of the things you must have down before you can solo out is you need to know to recover from a stall. And on the right-hand side, that's the position of what happens after you've stalled. So this is a glider, and it's a common misconception that a stall is when the engine stops. No engine on a glider, right? What a stall is when the wind isn't going over your plane, your wings fast enough to create lift to keep you up. So the way you induce a stall is, you pull up, you pull up, you pull up, and eventually it'll just fall out of the sky. And that plane that you see pictured on the right side there, this is the position he's in. All right, the guy in the front, you can see there's about an inch gap between his hands and his knees because he's inverted. Now, if this happens to you and you don't have your boldface down and know what to do, you're going to kill yourself, someone else in the plane, and destroy government property, which is our tax dollars. So the boldface for getting out of stall is stick full forward, rudder full opposite direction of spin, recover from dive, maintain aircraft control, and then it says radio tower if you have an emergency. That's it. Well, this little story I'm going to tell you is, in spite of what you see in Top Gun and Top Gun Maverick, that Tom Cruise is a great Navy pilot, seamen don't always make great airmen. We have an exchange program between the academies. In fall semester, they come out, and then we exchange 6 cadets. We have some Naval Academies there, Academy kids there. One of them, his name was Brian, he was in my major, economics. He got behind, and it's a project you have to be done in your semester, or he never gets to solo. He's one of the few from the Naval Academy who would get to solo. He goes, hey Greg, can you do me a favor? Can you schedule your flight time and give me some priority when you come down? I said, not a problem, I'll come down. So we're on the flight line like he is here, and the student is in the front, and I'm tandem behind him, right behind him, about 2 feet behind his head. You never yell, because you'll scare the person. And so he did his checklist on the ground, and one of the things on the ground is you have to say, I'm strapped in, are you? It's a challenge and response, just like your computer makes you log on every day. And I said, I'm strapped in, are you? Now something I have to explain is the cockpit, what your pilots wear, is different than what you wear in the back in the passenger area. We have a 4-point strap over the shoulders, over the waist, and it clips together. Think you're trying to put your grandkid or a brand new baby into a child seat, you're trying to lock it all in. It's all these things that come together, but it doesn't click. It's a little bar that you fold over and it makes no noise. There's a little itsy-bitsy ball and it has to clasp. So he said, I'm strapped in, but I can't hear anything. I just trust him. So off we go flying. He does the radio calls, we fly, we climb up to 2,800 above ground level, and this is where you do your stall, because he has to do this to be able to solo out. And he starts pulling back on the stick, and I'm sitting in the back seat, I don't have my hand on the stick, he's pulling back, finally it breaks, and he falls down, his arms go up, and he tucks his head, and I grab his shoulder, and I grab the stick and say, my plane. I immediately shove him in his seat and go, stick full forward, rudder full opposite direction of spin, recover from dive, etc. Okay? So I got him in his seat, said, please put your seatbelt on for real this time. And but it was probably a quarter inch was the difference between him coming out, and when you get to negative G, he just flew into the canopy. I am so thankful the lash held, that the plexiglass is strong enough to not let him go through, because my radio call would have been, I have to a student. It would have been horrible. It would have made national news, because anytime a cadet dies, it usually makes national news. Thankfully, that didn't happen. I gave him the stick back in the plane, got him out there, had him do some 45-degree turns, all the normal maneuvers we had done, did our slip-on final, he landed us just fine, everything went well. Well, something we do in the pilot world is we do debriefs after you fly. In PM speak, that's a retrospective. Right? We've been doing them a long time. So we sat down, and he was embarrassed, thankful to be alive, didn't know how he could be so stupid to not to put his seatbelt down, all this stuff. And I said, hey, Brian, you know, I got to let you know, you have an instructor pilot for a reason. It's so we don't hurt each other and we don't destroy government property. And then the other thing, I got to let you know, when I was going through my instructor upgrade, I got us in a situation and my instructor pilot had to take the stick from me. It was embarrassing. I was ashamed. It got us in this unsafe situation. And I had to go face all my other 40 peers who were upgrading, and I just bombed a flight. And they all knew about it. Now, I'm not going to tell anybody but that happened, but I'm an instructor pilot today. You can solo. 4 flights later, he did. One of the things a leader can do is relate empathetically, empathetically, and reestablish. We can protect someone's esteem, okay? We can protect their character and get them on the right foot again. That is something we do, machine can never do. It'll simulate it, but I know I'm talking to a machine, I don't believe it. Well, let's look at a current day leader's definition of leadership. So this isn't a leader, this is leadership. Colin Powell, Chairman Joint Chief of Staff, that's the highest ranking general in the DoD under George Bush during Desert Storm. You saw him on TV quite a bit. Might know a little bit about leadership, commanded 2.7 million people. And he also became, under George W. Bush, Secretary of State, entrusted with managing all the relationships with foreign presidents, dignitaries, etc. His definition is threefold. A leader is someone unafraid to take charge, someone to whom people respond, and someone whom they will follow. Let's break that down into 3 components. First is, and you guys have all done this, partly by being in this conference, but partly by being a PMP or a PM, is he did some self-management. He overcame his fear. There's fear of public speaking, there's fear of kicking off a project, do I have the background, are they gonna like me, do I have the sponsorship, all these different things. It's self-management first, always that first. Then he gets into the next one. Someone to whom people respond. Well, we do that through storytelling, empathy, being sincere, those kind of things. And then lastly, will they follow you? Can you inspire people? when we looked at all the leaders up there, one of the points that I was trying to make was that none of them were all the same age when they peaked at their leadership or did it. The youngest one on that board of 20 was Alexander the Great. He ruled the known world at age 27. The known world at age 27. He was dead by 33 because of how he lived. So Colin Powell breaks it into 3 things: overcome yourself, then you're presentable to other people, then you relate to people like Ben said today, and then will they follow you as you go forward. Let's look at what generative AI is. So this is according to Forrester, but just a group of systems, and it really runs off a large language model, and it's no different than you train up your child or a student if you're a teacher. When you have that child at home, you teach him or her to read, write, you read them books at night. Might read May's book that she wrote, My Mommy's a PM. And you train that person how to come up. You teach them morals, you teach them ethics, you teach them what your family ideas are. Eventually, they go off to school. They learn all about science, math, arts, all those things, but they're getting that part of the information. They aren't getting what everybody else's family gets and what this family thinks and what someone in a different continent thinks. They're getting what you think, all right? So these large language models go out to the whole internet and pull that up, but you are training a person on this. And I'm going to get into this point a little bit later about nativity of a large language model or generative AI. Just like most state laws do not allow anybody under the age of 8 to testify in court because you could swing, all right? Same thing with generative AI. It doesn't know if what you just fed it was correct or not. So the thing that's scary on here that is a risk to us is, I keep saying generative AI. It generates new ideas. It takes what you taught your child from day one that you got him or her home, and all that up and all the experiences and what they could recall, you can actually ask that child. It's kind of fun when your child gets old enough to talk with you, right? And answer questions. What do you think about this? What about that? Well, that's all generative AI is doing. We built it after ourselves. And then there's a secondary model of this, and we're going to get into this with PMI Infinity. You can do a retrieval augmented generation. That's like giving your AI, this costs money, a PhD on project management, HR, some part of law, another part of law, just go down the line. This is why it's going to replace or displace so many knowledge workers. That's going to pull back everything flawlessly every time. But we're going to test whether or not it can lead. So that's what a generative pre-trained transformer is. The T isn't trained, it's transformer, meaning it makes something new. And then the chat is just like if I were talking to anyone in this room one-on-one, we're just chatting. And if you have speech recognition on your computer, you could actually talk to it. I type it in, but if you have that, you have it. So let's look at the leadership context, because we have to look at that before we can decide who can make it there. Now, I mentioned that there's literature on leadership from about late 6th century BC. The first public work that was actually classified for about 4 centuries by the Chinese was Sun Tzu. The book is called The Art of War. It's been used by strategists for business and all that stuff, how do we build, et cetera, et cetera. And what his whole premise is, he has a whole bunch of things in there. He doesn't actually define leadership, but he says attributes of a good leader and weaknesses of a leader. But one of the things he says is there's 2 environments up there. One is external, that circle, and one is inside. And then outside is where he gets into his bigger thing. He says, look, you could have the perfect commander, perfect leader, perfect team. It could look like you have the best strategy to go win. But if you don't have your outside environment together, or it's not right and you have very little control over that, don't go to battle. Your probability is less than 50%. And then he gave examples when that happened. So let's start at the 9 o'clock position with the stakeholders. Back in 6th century BC, he called those allies. We haven't changed that. We call it stakeholders. Stakeholders change over time. Sometimes they're protagonists. Sometimes they're antagonists. Sometimes as the project goes along, they switch. And we have a whole knowledge area called stakeholder management, right? Hasn't changed 2,500 years. Let's go to the 2 o'clock position. These are all your information systems. I don't know what information system you use. You might use Excel, you might use a whiteboard, you might use a Kanban, you might use some big $1 million system to do your project management. Can you get your information? Okay? In his speak, that's spies. All right? That would be a spy back then. And then at the 4 o'clock position at the bottom, it's how quickly can you cycle that information accurately. Because if you're ever in the DoD and when you're making decisions, and has been referred to this morning, if your information is not accurate and it's not timely, it's not actionable. And you'll get yourself killed or you'll lose the battle. So those are his 3 external things. Who are my allies? Can I get information? Can I refresh it fast enough to win the battle and win and do the battle? We do the same thing in PM. You have contacts you talk to, you have little chat sessions, you have chat GPT, you get your stuff, right? Let's go inside the circle now. Now we got the leader and we've got a team. So a leader, we've already defined what a leader is, someone with influence. We define what leadership is: overcome self-fear, be able to relate to somebody that somebody can respond to, and then people who are willing to follow you. Be someone's willing to follow. So let's go back to Sun Tzu on this one. The relationship between that leader and team is much greater than the team by itself, all right? We all know that from self-experience. But the way that leader works with the team becomes, or it plays out like this. First of all, the leader has to extend some loyalty to that team. You're on my team, I'm going to protect you, I'll get you information. If you get in trouble, I'll bail you out, etc. Over time, that leader earns loyalty back. You don't get it right off the bat. We say you do, or we do when you go onto a team, so you need to be loyal to this person. I know you're not until you get to know the person and that he or she has your back as well. All right, so there's partly a loyalty, but there's a trust function that works as well. And Sun Tzu goes, what he says is, he's got a quote that says, if a leader treats his troops as young children, he doesn't mean diminutive in that way, but that they're valuable to him, they will follow him anywhere. Then his second part of this is, if he treats them as beloved children, they will follow him to death in a battle. All right, so there's some kind of love, or there's some kind of love that goes on there that team then can trust, and that's how you become, they're more willing to follow you. At the same time, that team builds up its loyalty and extends it up, and then builds a bunch of trust into the person and will go with you anywhere. For us, that's working late at nights, giving up a weekend because something crashed. These things all happen to every one of your projects. I know it's happened to you, or you've been on a team that it's happened. No surprises there. Now, what Sun Tzu said about this love thing, this love and response thing, comes forward. Let me bring you up to World War II. There's a captain, Captain Charles McDonald, who wrote a book called Company Commander in World War II. These are the guys who have about 100 troops, and they go out and propagate war. Now they're under MacArthur or under someone like that that's telling them where to go, but they have 100 troops as their basic fighting unit. And McDonald said it is this. He said, while my lot in life out here may have been easier physically, I wasn't toting 5 guns, 18 grenades, 3 bayonets and everything else. I had more of an emotional burden. I knew each and every one of my sergeants, lieutenants, privates. I chose, when I said scouts out, who was going to be exposed to sniper attack, who had to go on the special missions at night to go do things. He also, if anybody's had the chance to see the movie Saving Private Ryan, but you saw the captain in that, anytime someone would get killed, he'd sit down that night and write a letter to the parents. That is a huge emotional burden. And that's what McDonald's talking about, is that he felt an emotional burden, which was harder than the physical burden, though he very much respected them for carrying on that burden, just the physical part of it. Now, let me move that up to 1990 and tell you a book called Undaunted by a lady named Bianchi. And she refers to a Lieutenant Bergen Flanagan in Desert Storm, serving under General Powell at the time, who was out on a mission in Iraq. She's the platoon leader at that time, a little smaller unit. She stepped on a grenade. She lost one of her legs up to the hip. They They stopped the bleeding. They got her to a field unit. Her colonel flew out, Colonel Garrity flew out to meet her in the field unit. She was still medicated to see how she was doing. The first things out of her mouth were, "Thank you, I'm okay, but I'm so glad it was me and not one of my troops." All right, so we're going from 600 BC, 1940s, 1950s war, to 1990. This is a thing that has to be, you have to be leading from a sacrificial position. That is how we human beings relate. That is he or she willing to put in more than what I'm putting in to get this done. Okay, we extend loyalty, we earn it back, we extend love, we get trust back. And then that unit can do a lot more, again, together than it can separately. So that's the crux of leadership, and it has to be in an environment, because again, you can have that perfect relationship and you're still going to lose just because of the environment. Let's look at now that we've got an understanding of generative AI, and I think you know what humans are, we're going to look at the 17 strengths and weaknesses that Sun Tzu puts out there. They're not all up here. So they fall into character and skills, which are my classifications. I'm not going to get into all of them. We're just going to go to the top tier on every one of them. So generative AI. If generative AI has checks and balances in it, so it's not biased, it will beat us every time in impartiality. On impartiality, because it will just the facts, man, right? That's all it's going to give you. Its weakness, its clarion weakness is it's apathetic. I know it's a machine. It doesn't care about me. I can discern that. Moving over to the skills side, it will bring information back flawlessly from all 10 disciplines, or whatever it's trained on. You saw me freeze up before when I was on the leadership page. I forgot what one of my main points was. Generative AI will never forget that. It will always bring it back. The weakness in the skill side is that it is naive. Just like you can take a child and train it whatever you want, it thinks that's the truth. Generative AI does not know that. When you get into tools that summarize your meetings, one of the ones that Copilot does, and I'll call them out by name, but it summarizes your meeting, and it'll say at the top, when it says AI notes, it'll say, this was generated by AI, check the work. It gives you a warning every time. Humans. Now, humans are not black and white binary. I can train 50 million AIs to be identical. Humans, there are 8 billion of us, and to think that there were only 6 billion of us in 1994. We've grown by 33% in that time span. Our greatest weakness is you can put me in a situation that I can become self-centered and very unpleasant to be around. Nobody likes that. And if somebody's exhibiting that all the time, that's one of the weaknesses Sun Tzu points out, is if you've got somebody self-centered, do not make that man or woman your leader, because it's not going to make any cohesion for your unit. On the skill side, we are inventive, we are creative, we're the only ones who can come up with a brand new idea without a prompt, because nobody had to prompt me to come up with some new idea. You can scale it out in your head, you can do a drawing, eventually you can build a car, skyscraper. I don't know, probably in this room, you've probably done 20 projects apiece. Think of all the things you envisioned and did. That's something we can do that generative AI cannot do. Its weakness, our weakness though, is we're subject to emotions. At this point, I'm scared. I might freeze. Okay, now we were only this, and so I could grab his shoulder and shove him back on the seat. Had he fallen out, I don't know if I'd be here today. I don't know if I would have been here. So we are subject to emotions. That's our greatest weakness. This is from PMI, and I want to give you the Bennett Project Manager. It is simply a human augmented with generative AI. That's who it is. That's where we're going. There's going to be a few cases on like rollout projects. This is my forecast, who knows. On rollout projects where it's all just manufactured and it's all just a checklist, generative AI might be able to do that. But on the other ends, we need it. So let's look at this scale. On the right-hand side, on the vertical, you're going to talk about task complexity, from low to high. And on the bottom, we're talking about who does the work. Automation on the left, human being on the right, with an augmented fashion. So let's dive into a couple of these. If we look at report generation, if you use Excel or built a program or wrote something in C++, did it ever come back wrong if you didn't feed it something wrong? It never came back wrong, okay? And you may put wrong data in it, but it never comes back wrong. So let it do that stuff. Plus, we get bored, and I make mistakes out of boredom. I believe other people do as well. It just happens, and then I look, you know, that doesn't help me or my company progress. Let's move to the next one, this risk analysis. I'm going to go right on the bubble on that one because we're going to hit that a little bit later again. But you can go to PMI Infinity or any other generative AI tool, and you could say, I'm dealing with a project that does this, I'm in a company that's this big, I have this many people on it, I have this many stakeholders, this percentage, I'm getting a very long prompt here, but it wants to know everything. This percentage is our antagonist, this percentage is protagonist. What, I'm come up against this issue, what other risks do I need to do? So what PMI Infinity will do is it goes through all the PEM box, all the BA box, and all that stuff, and it gives you the right answer. And every chat I put into PMI Infinity has been correct and faster than I would have figured out myself. So it can do risk analysis, because if you say, do my risk analysis, you can tell I'm dealing with these risks, would you please build a risk table? And it will give you, risk classification and then impact, and it'll give you both of that and give you a normal PMBOK risk thing that you can print out or put on the slide and discuss with it. It's a very powerful tool. And this is the low-end stuff. But at that point, it's assisting you. It's just generating a table based on what you gave it. Let's go up to a business case creation. So first of all, on here, you can write a prompt into generative AI and say, I need a business case. I'm a company this big. Our industry is this, et cetera, et cetera. We're looking at launching this. How would I do it? And build me a business case. It will come out and give you a 8-section business case. It'll be all nice and pretty and formatted. You can tape it, paste it into Word. But if you notice, this is on the augmented side. When it comes back, it doesn't know the specifics of your company. This is where we fill in, right? It doesn't know if your company's leaving one way or another. It doesn't know your business model. It doesn't know where you make money. It doesn't know your cost of capital. You could put that all in, but unless you have a private generative AI, do not, because you've just shared that with the world. So augmentation, it'll come up there and it'll help you get you going. Instead of starting with a white sheet of paper, it's nice to have an 8-part business case to start with. I go, oh, I need to research some more of this stuff. So what generative AI will do is, think of sprints, it can accelerate how fast you deliver. All right? Because it's going to do the rote stuff. It's not going to make the dumb errors that we make because we get bored. And it makes you smarter and to deliver faster. Better PM, be your human side, relate to people, build relationships, use this stuff to do the rote things that you don't like doing. And when I've had it do a risk analysis for me, I can tell you it's been almost 20 years since I took my PMP exam. I can't quote you the 5 steps to risk analysis anymore, I apologize. So when it comes up, it goes, well, first of all, the 5 steps of risk analysis. Oh yeah, I forgot that one there. But then it walks you through it, which is very powerful, speeds me up, helps me do a better job for my clients and for my company. Now, let's look into the tools that we have available. Both of these come out of PMI. You have to be a member to get it. I'm not selling for PMI, just telling you what the rules are. So PMI Infinity. This is PMI's generative AI train, and this is that retrieval augmented generation that I talked about. It has every PMBOK, every BA BOK. It has disciplined agile browser in there. You can't ask it a question that it can't answer. The other beauty is, if we have a little time at the end, I'll run a prompt at the end. I like to do earned value. I would have to build a spreadsheet, you have to put it in, I get the formula wrong. This thing, you just type it in 45 seconds we'll do one, if we have time. 45 seconds, I have it all. It's nice. And again, I have not found any problem with PMI Infinity. Here's one that we love to do, write user stories, right? Who loves to sit down and write a user story? You can write a prompt and it'll give you user stories back. That'll help your VA friends when they're working with it. Now, this is more of a tactical side of it. The strategic side that I think PMI has helped us with is right here. And this is a generative AI canvas. It's in a system called Miro. You have to have a license, but they also did it in PDF, so you can just download it and move it into PowerPoint. It is an 8-step process with many guides and questions. What roles should you have on your team? What risks should you consider? What kind of player should you have? What phrasing you should have? And it's all in these nice little areas down here with all the drill in. And again, it is all available just in PDF. But just think, before you were a PM and you didn't know that PMI existed and you were trying to do a project, well, how many activities do you really have? Well, I know there's 5 now. And when I took it, there were 9 knowledge, but there's 10 now. This thing just knows it, and it will just walk you through it. And you can look a lot smarter, reduce your cycle time, right? That's what our goal is, and produce value for our clients and our customers. And I think you look better in the long run. So those are some tools that we have available to us. Let's look where generative AI is proliferating. Johns Hopkins, they use it for lesion detection. They're also using it, not Johns Hopkins, but other hospitals are using it for medical procedures to check for kinds of cancer that human beings will miss. Let's go into the legal realm. Notice there's a little bomb over here. There's a company called Levito, and Oberman. You may not know their names, but you know their story as of June 2023 in a legal case in New York City that was thrown out. Ringing bells with anybody? They went in and prepared for their client, a multi-million-dollar client, against another multi-million-dollar client. And as they were presenting, the defendant said, wait a second, we're looking up all your case law that you gave, and we can't find 6 of these. And the judge said, can you guys come forward? Both lawyers came forward, and he said, you need to present your case. So the firm that was Levito, and Oberman went back and looked through all their stuff and said, should we have a recess here? And they came back very embarrassed. They got their court case thrown out because they admitted that they used generative AI to do it. And their statement was this: we did not think a system would create something new out of whole cloth. It completely made up the cases, put judge names on it, puts the dates, put the case law cited, put the citation, and if it were a human, I would have said it lied. But we don't like to use that word, so it hallucinated. It hallucinated. So when Copilot or AI, when your notes and it says, this is AI generated, check it, it is wrong. It is wrong in places. It's just wrong. It didn't have all those conversations you've had with people. It doesn't know. So case hallucination, be very, very careful. They got a lot of notoriety. They're fined with $5,000. What do you think their client loss was? The judge just fined them because he had to. They lost clients over that. I don't have that on record, but I'm sure they did. Pardon me? No, they weren't done. They weren't disborted. Okay, entertainment. Anybody see the writer's strike last year? Anybody remember when it was over? They wanted to block AI from ever writing ever. I'll let you look it up to figure out how it was resolved, but it was resolved. Consulting. This is a local company, intelligent integration. This ties back to that third slide with 2 big boxes. This company runs a multi-million-dollar company, hundreds of projects a year, doesn't have 1 PM, not one. It's a generative AI PM called Bob. That's how he does it. And Bob interviews his engineers, and Bob can create a critical path, and Bob can take them through risk analysis, Bob can calculate earned value management. That's how he does it. He also doesn't have a legal department or an HR department. Now he's got a big enough company where he's got the capital to buy the RAG, or the retrieval augmented generated AI, but that's how he does it. Now, I didn't talk to him one-on-one, but I know if he had to go to court, he would go get a lawyer to do that, but that's how he does his work. This last one is AWA, Artificial Intelligence Workforce Assistance, and I would like to have Google Glass on there, but there's no picture of that, and it's copyrighted. But this is, think you've got a headset on, you're sitting at your computer, AI is watching everything you do, it's on the phone with you every time you call, and it's just with you, and it's prompting you. Hey, I just saw you did the search, the person is saying this on the phone call, why didn't you say this? This is no different than a talking head reading a prompter on the newscast, but there's a news director, and you see the guy every once go, wait a minute, we just had breaking news, and you, wait, sorry, pay attention, commercial. All right, so that's how they do that. But he seems more, or she seems more authoritative and more current on the news. That's what this would do for you. That would be very powerful, and I would be open to doing that. I did see, and this was 4 or 5 years ago, I think it was MIT. They had gotten it. These people volunteered for this, but they implanted something in the people's brains, and you saw it live active. They had live camera, live mic, and the person just thought. The prompt showed up on the screen, and the computer answered. It did not. He didn't have to say. He didn't have to type. So they've already proved this works at MIT. I was amazed. So in this world, it's coming out everywhere. We need to be aware of it. I don't think you need to be afraid of it, but it is a risk to us. How about a 3-pronged approach to do this? The left one is the left one on purpose. If you don't have an AI account yet, they're free. Just go get one and play with it. Don't put anything personal in it. Don't put anything in your company's business in it, because you can get fired over that stuff. I've had to tell my staff and my team members that. There is accountability in the government. All right? So go do it. And I will take the same generative AI, I'll take 3 or 4 at the same time. I'll run the same prompt in at the same time and see who gives me the best one. Oh, you're my lawyer, you're my HR. It's an interview process. Fine before you buy. The other point on this is the generative AI, which you may nickname Bob, Jenny, whatever you want to call it, works for you. When I hire somebody new on my team, I don't care how old they are, how young they are, how green they are, I never send it to my boss or my CEO without first reading it. Would never do that. Levito, Urberman, learn their deal. So hire your best. Hire your best. Now, second tier, go get some training. Unfortunately, the presentation I did last year had all things that were free. This year, unfortunately, these are all at a cost. But our membership's like $125. I would just get these 2 classes. And if you can go get this one from LinkedIn, which that license, it's not too expensive, but this How to Research and Write Using Generative AI, he's telling you about how to write, but his best session is there, it's how to write a prompt. So think of you when you're meeting somebody new, you'll chat tonight at dinner or at the social, and you're trying to get to know the person a little bit, and you're just making small talk and stuff, and after a while you go, oh, this guy says this word for that, she says this for that, and you actually start to talk. Now, think 5 years into your relationship, if you've got a husband or wife or whatever situation is a very close friend, you can kind of finish each other's sentences, which can be annoying sometimes. But you can have a very intimate conversation very quickly. Well, that's what Dave Briss is teaching you to do. How do you write a best prompt to get the thing to give you the information back the fastest and the best that you can get back? So these will give you an understanding so you can talk about it, not necessarily authoritatively, but at least from an informed position. And then here's some very practical, tactical stuff that if you really want to refine your skills, go get this How to Research and Write using generative AI. The last thing is, go deliver. PMI a few years ago said we're not PMOs anymore, we're VDOs, Value Delivery Offices, right? Deliver value. Speed up that cycle. You use your soft skills to make the relationships, to get the information that your your generative AI cannot get. Go deliver value for your customers and for your clients. Within the employer GI policies and within your ethics, okay? I can't stress that enough. Ben hit on character this morning. These things don't have character. They just, whatever they found, they give back to you. I will give a bit of a warning too, when you just go to an open AI or something like that that's just out there that's free, the other thing is, I can use words like MBOK, BABOK, 10 knowledge areas, because most of us are PMPs in here. If I took all of Dallas and we stuffed us all into this room, I have to talk differently to it because they don't have all of our language. That's the ability to write the prompts better. You have to get that down. And the general ones, that's like picking a man or woman on the street, say, hey, how should I run a PM thing? If you go to PMI Infinity, it at least has the PMBOK and the BA box in it to give you an answer. If you go to just normal generative AI, it's going to give you the man on the street side. It's still going to try to refine it, but every prompt I've run, PMI Infinity beats it on the PMI side, on the project management side. All right, so what we've done is, we've gotten over the fact that generative AI is here, it's pervasive, it is everywhere. I'm assuming most of you, or some of you at least, have gone out and played with it some. I highly encourage that, protecting your information and your companies and abiding by their ethics standards. It is replacing knowledge workers, it's going to replace some of our work. It's just going to happen. And I say that, does anybody know what, you know, if you think of a computer, you're thinking of a computer sitting up here or whatever. A computer, and it was brought out in the movie Hidden Shadows, the moon launch, and they showed the ladies in the background. Computers, they were people who worked with slide rules to do calculations. That's what they did. Hidden Figures brought that out. A computer now is a little box that does a bunch of calculations for me. PMs, currently, I'd like to keep them human. You're going to have to be a decider. You're going to help decide that. But our differentiation is that you can empathize, be somebody people relate to, and whom they will follow. You have to overcome your self-fear first, but that's the whole key to doing this. And that's how you differentiate yourself. So I'll open up to questions. If you say you're at the conference and you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'll accept your invitation. But any questions from or on this topic?
How long were you at Pilot?
Well, I only did it, you have to be pilot qualified, and I lost mine for medical reasons, but I really enjoyed the 3 years I flew.
Cool. That was a leadership question.
Yes.
So when you talked about at the very beginning, being in the glider
Mhm.
and the person not strapped in and you intervened,
Mhm.
you said you gave this person back the stick. What did it take to get to that place of giving it back? Because we talked earlier, I think Ben talked about, we see things like this is, I can do it better, and like when you're in a fearful
Mhm.
situation, but you gave this person back the stick for them to finish out what they had
Right.
to do. How did you get to that place of, all right, you're in control here?
It's an art, but the way I did it was, I knew he had had 6 flights previously. He ran all the checklists right. He just did a negligence thing. Now, negligence can't kill. But I knew he would take it. He's got the same training I have, and I'd had 10 other students before him. So I hadn't had that situation, but I just gave him back the stick. If he hadn't taken it, it would have been a different discussion. I would have still flown, and I would have tried again to get him to take the stick back, because I wanted him to. But once he was safe, I just wanted to get him flying again to get his confidence back up. Because he was embarrassed, he was scared a little bit. But I can't see his face, I'm seeing the back of his head. But I could tell the tone. And he was fine, so he got it back.
And a new leader comes on.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that person isn't as empathetic as you were. How else would you handle that situation if to the point where you weren't ready to give that stick as the person behind you?
Well, I could have made that choice to just keep the stick and land and talk to him on the ground, but I was deciding at that point too is how much harder is it going to be to build him back up if I take the flight the whole way. You've got to get it back. He already knew if he got in a bad situation, I will take the plane, and we're not going to kill each other, and by golly, we're not going to waste tax dollars by wrecking government property, right? Another question I got as I was practicing with my wife actually is, well, Greg, what's to stop your boss from hiring PM Bob? And I said, well, PM Bob can't go and talk with Natalia, with Lawrence, with whomever, and have side conversations and build a relationship over a number of years that we trust each other. Can't do that. Can't have the water cooler talk that you just build these relationships with and you build trust. And also that has argued with me before, lost arguments before, won arguments with me, apologized, made up, and done that. And I said that would be my case back to my boss. Now, if they're going to let me go when they hire me back, I may have some kind words to say back, but a generative AI cannot do that. It can run 1,000,000 cycles, but I know it's a machine. I don't trust it. It's not that I don't trust it for accuracy. It's not sincere because it doesn't have an internal quality and ability to be sincere. Any others? Otherwise, I want to run couple prompts for you. All right. One thing I do want to point out for military, if you know somebody in the military, There's a organization, well, it's free, but it's Syracuse University. If you just type in Syracuse OTO, there are a number of certifications you can get from PMP, PMI, ACI, a whole bunch of IT certifications. You just type in O2O or O2O Syracuse. It goes for the military member who's left. It goes for his or her husband, wife, spouse, significant other. It's a wonderful program. I want to make sure people have access to that. I'm going to go ahead and take this down. And then let's go over to, this is PMI Infinity. I've already put the prompt in. Notice right here there's a typo. It's on purpose. A large language model, if I mispronounce something, you would probably understand what I'm saying. But I've got a project, it's a budget of $1 million, scheduled for 6 months. After 3 months, so I'm 50% done. I'm not telling it how far I'm done. It says it has to assume I'm 50% done. The actual cost is $654. Project is 37% complete. Am I over under budget? Am I ahead or behind schedule? Let's do this. And show me your work. So it's generating response, and I'll scroll down when it comes up. But it will calculate all those things and give you the math. So if you want to put it in Excel and put your particulars in, it'll give us a summary at the bottom as well. But it's kind of walking you through like if you have a brand new PM. Hey, planned value is this, earned value is this. Here's how you calculate it. Now we're going to calculate, well, earned value. You said you're 37% done, so you've earned $370,000. Your actual cost is $654. Well, let's do some calculations down here. Because I asked it to tell me how to do it. And the thing I really wanted was, what's my variance of completion? Because I get to go tell my boss that I'm going to overrun by $769,000. Now you saw, I paused a little bit, that took 45 seconds. How long would that, as long as you know, there aren't very many facts I had to give it. My budget, how much I spent, time, how far I should be done, and what do I want. Let me give you another prompt here and just change it a little bit. That red text is probably too small, but instead of saying I was 37% done, we're going to say I'm 60% done, and then give me the EAC, CPI, and SPI, which I'm sure you guys would love to calculate. Well, I guess I scared it. Oh, here we go. Maybe generative AI does have feelings. So this time, I'm telling you instead of 37%, I'm 60% done in the prompt. And I want a new thing called CPI and SPI, and it just keeps writing faster than I can type. So it's generative, it's creating new information based on what it knows and what you asked it. So there it goes. Therefore, you are over budget and underperforming. The position you love to be in. Right? So what's going on? We know by rule that CPI and SPI, if it's below 1, that's bad. If it's above 1, it's good. So what we've got is, we've got a CPI of 0.92, you're getting 92 cents of value for every dollar you're doing, and it says we're getting about on schedule for there, so we're fine there. And it says my variance of completion is going to be, I'm only going to be about 54K over budget. So just a couple quick prompts. You can see I made typos in it on purpose. I asked a new thing in the next prompt because you can refine your prompt. That's one thing Dave Brisk teaches is ask the first question, ask it to refine it the next time. Just like I'd ask a clarifying question with you if we were talking. So thank you for your time today. Appreciate your attendance and your questions.
Sir? Great, thanks, Harry. Always. Yeah, this is always a good time. And I was actually at your session right before this one, so thank you for your time over there. It was awesome. It is. It's going to be exciting. We're just trying to make sure that it becomes something intelligent. Yes. Now we have. Yeah. Bowling, leave a bumper guard on the side. And we've got people that are enthusiastic to talk about hardware, but
So my title
less of
is,
that.
I'm the head of governance and also known as the exchange.
One person that has a loud enough voice that will shut down everybody. You can say whatever you want, I don't care. Yeah, that's, either you're gonna this place will embrace it, and I will grow here, or I will grow elsewhere. Oh, and I'm not caring about you at all. They're embracing it. They're embracing it without understanding. So it's really, I don't see the resistance, at least in our company, I don't see the resistance when I see people.
Well, that was the lower left box.
Again, without understanding what they're embracing technology.
Yes.
They were, and then they went through a period where the pendulum swung the other way, and now it's actually swinging back, right, where change is not being resisted nearly as much. So now the pendulum's on the way back. So it's, oh, okay, so you go do this now, so let's